Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks. We're going to get started. Jump right in. Thanks to our American Sign Language interpreters. I want to, again, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Try to give you an update on some data points, some additional information that's obviously come out over the last several days, and answer your questions as you have them. If you have a question, just add it to the comment section there underneath the live stream. So first, let's talk a little bit about our data so that you're aware of where we are since the beginning of the COVID pandemic and the emergency here in Dutchess County. We have cooperated to conduct and complete nearly 33,000 individual tests. 32,889 tests have been conducted. To date, 3,924 positive cases, with currently now 1,420 active cases. Now, over the course of the last 2.5 weeks, as you know, we've seen a steady decline in both hospitalizations and severity of hospitalization. Sadly, 142 people have succumbed to the disease in Dutchess County. But as we look at how the state measures us, as you likely know, we're measured as one of 7 counties in the Mid-Hudson region. The state of New York had established 7 basic benchmarks or measurements that regions would have to achieve. We achieved all 7, and currently we're holding within those 7 basic benchmarks. Now, earlier in the week, the state launched a new dashboard. Actually, it was late Friday. Launched a new dashboard. They're referring to it as a warning monitoring system. And I have to tell you, actually, this is better than the first dashboard, because actually what this is a reflection ongoing with a longer range average that allows us to kind of project forward what we think could happen moving forward. So as you look at that particular dashboard, you'll see the indicators there and the individual numbers, and all of that is very, very promising. Even today, as a reference, the Mid-Hudson is at 2.5% positive test rate. So that's over a 7-day rolling average, with only 7 new cases per 100,000, and that's been on a steady decline. In fact, when you go to those that dashboard, you can click on each of those individual metrics and then look at what that looks like over time, which is why I think this is actually very useful. I'll give the state credit and commend them for that. This is a useful document. It's some information that I think will be very helpful for us to look at. But just as an example, new cases per 100,000, you can see what that looks like. Now, there was that brief spike in the middle of April. The question, of course, moving forward is, will we see a bit of an incline again? However, everything we see, and this is, again, for the region, is very, very promising. So the state established these phases, and it's sort of a low to high risk implementation or reactivation of businesses. I know that you are frustrated. I share your frustration, although obviously there are so many who are dealing with so much more pain in this current fiscal crisis. But as you know, the Mid-Hudson region began phase 1. This isn't necessarily how we would do it, but nevertheless, this is how the state's doing, sort of this phased approach with sort of categories of businesses. I think you know that. We began phase 1 a week ago, and based on the state's model, we should approach and be approved to move to phase 2 on June 9th. So Tuesday, June 9th is the day that, if you use that 14-day window that the state has said is the review, that's when we will begin. Now, I do want you to know that we have been making the case that we can begin phase 2 now. The county executives in the Mid-Hudson region, I don't want to speak for everyone, but a majority of us have verbally said that and have argued these last several days that based on the data and based on our public health department's reviews of where we are and the projection moving forward, we should be in the process of beginning phase 2 today. In fact, we think that we should be linked with the Capital District, which begins the phase 2 process today as well. And there's a lot of reasons why that makes sense from a public health perspective. Our numbers are fine. We've reviewed the experience that other regions across the state have had over these last 2 weeks. But we also think from an economic perspective, we can't delay. And so we're calling on the state to advance us now to this phase 2 stage, if you will, so that we can move faster in getting some of the lower risk businesses moving forward. But until then, the governor's order is that we remain in this phase 1 until June the 9th. Now, just as a reference, let's go to, as a reminder, what phase 2 and phase 1 looks like. So the businesses that would be activated in phase 2, so this is assuming we move forward on June 9th. However, I will tell you that again, we want us to proceed ahead of June 9th. We're comfortable with that happening today. The state has not said that will occur, but nevertheless, phase 2 includes all offices, real estate, in-store retail, vehicle sales, leases, rentals, retail rentals, repair, cleaning, commercial buildings, and hair salons and barbershops. Now, today and yesterday or the day before, the governor made 2 more announcements. This, I have to tell you, I think comes from our advocacy. So all I can tell you is that counties across the state have been really pushing hard to advance what makes sense from a public health perspective to get the economy going. And so we've been arguing that day camps should open, and we've been arguing that outdoor dining at restaurants should be permitted along with phase 2, and that was announced today. So I will tell you, at the request of counties across the state, phase 2 will now include outdoor dining with some specific restrictions. We can talk about that. And the governor announced 2 days ago that day camps will be permitted by the state of New York beginning June 29th. Dutchess County already advised 2 weeks ago those who administer camps in the county that they could proceed on or about July 1. So this comes comes along with what we had requested. If you're operating a summer camp in Dutchess County, you put in for that permit, we'll review it, and we will give you your approvals. So that's a sort of a recap on where we are with the phases. That's what we're going to be pushing for, which is an advancement of all the phase 2 businesses, especially with this concept that we can have outdoor dining. I want to talk to you about what the towns, villages, and cities have agreed to in order to effectuate outdoor dining and make that a little bit easier in municipalities, and what my expectation will be. We have this opening Main Street plan, or bring Main Street back to life plan. We have worked with the towns, villages, and cities in the county to identify ways to make it easier for restaurants to engage in outdoor dining. So we've identified a series of steps that we think are important. They include easing restrictions on outdoor seating and making use of public space. So municipalities are reviewing streets, sidewalks, courtyards, private courtyards, outdoor seating, and so outdoor areas where seating can be included. And our expectation is to sign an executive order. I will issue that emergency order waiving those local restrictions that will allow for the outdoor dining to occur. So we're saying to restaurants, while we transition back to full capacity, we're going to ask you to stay within your total capacity. But if you can only seat 50 people, and the state requires all 50 of those to be outside, and you only have room for 25 seats outside, the municipalities have been asked to create accommodations so you can have 50 seats outside. So the goal is to try to make that happen. If it's waiving some of the tent permit requirements, if it's waiving restrictions on parking spots so that parking lots can be converted into seating, we're all for it. And we're going to take every step we can to make that easier as part of our efforts to reopen Main Street. And you'll see that we'll talk a little bit more about that. A lot of questions we've had before, and I just want to cover again within Phase 2 now, just a reminder that it does include, Phase 2 does include hair salons and barbershops. I cannot explain to you for the life of me, and I'm not going to begin. Quite frankly, the state of New York needs to confront the lack of common sense with some of this. But Phase 2 includes haircuts, coloring, and styling. It does not include nails, facials. I'm not going to say the rest. Some of this is just... my personal opinion is that personal hygiene-like businesses should be all functioning in Phase 2. The governor is yet to say that, so I encourage you to use our means to reach out to the governor's office reach out to your state legislators. That is silly, and that is not something that we think threatens the public health. We think that all hygiene, personal hygiene-related businesses, certainly I think most of my colleagues feel, can be included with certain limitations. However, phase 2, beginning June 9th here in the Hudson Valley, is haircuts, coloring, and styling of hair. So there you go. Malls are not allowed to be open in phase 2, but stores within malls that have exterior access can be open. We're working with, in fact, some of our local shopping plazas to try to create a way to make sure that they aren't put at a competitive disadvantage and can open up along with phase 2, and we're going to continue to push on that. You likely know dentist's office now permitted to open as well. Lori asked about phase 2. Yes, phase 2 is scheduled to begin on Tuesday, June the 9th. And that is assuming, again, that everything continues in the direction we've been headed in with our data. We believe that we are on a clear path to begin June 9th. However, as I said, we're going to continue to advocate for that to happen sooner, especially now outdoor dining can occur in phase 2. That means there's outdoor dining that is going to begin in Germantown, New York, just outside of Columbia County, in Catskill, but not in Saugerties or Rhinebeck. And that, to us, makes very little sense. We don't have any reason to believe the public health risk is different with that kind of low-risk expansion of these phases, and we need to get people back to work. So I'm telling you that we're going to keep pushing on it. We're going to keep fighting for it. And I think that's, in fact, how we got these 2 next steps, outdoor dining and summer camps, going. Leanne asked about tattoo shops. Leanne, we have been told that they are in phase 3. However, we're going to continue to advocate for them to be included in phase 2, or at least ahead of phase 3. Again, the logic being that if you can cut my hair in this area, you should be able to perhaps administer a tattoo, I don't know, in this area. Just saying, from a personal hygiene perspective, our public health folks don't seem to think that that is a major risk to anyone's health. So, will hair salons inside a mall be open in phase 2? That is a great question, June. In theory, at the moment, only if they have exterior access, but that's exactly what Ron Hicks and the economic development team have been fighting about, which is you can't create a scenario that has these businesses at a competitive disadvantage. We're already at a disadvantage. New Jersey and Connecticut are well ahead of us, and frankly, we are concerned that the ability to simply drive off to Connecticut to spend your dollars could come with a public health risk, and it's coming with dollars leaving our communities, millions of dollars leaving our communities. So in order to ensure that that doesn't continue, we want to confront some of these inequities. And our point is that we understand the concept that you don't want the congregation in the mall, but if you can access it one door, get to your store, get to your hair salon, and access another, that is likely okay. Jen, will special needs kids have a 6-week session for summer? I hope so. And what I will tell you is that for 4 weeks, I have asked the state of New York to develop a set of plans, a protocol for in-person therapy for special education, and they haven't. We were told 2 days ago that if school districts wanted to develop a plan on their own, the state would consider them. This is what I'm going to tell you without being at all snide or angry about it. If the state of New York can create guidance for beaches on Long Island, if they can create guidance to access a subway car to get to work in New York City, and it can create guidance on whether or not to play tennis, I think that creating guidance for those who need special education services should rate at a much higher priority. And I ask you to join me in calling your state legislators and the governor's office to make perfectly clear that failure to continue to provide those special education services isn't only wrong, it's criminal. We cannot have a scenario where if we're concerned about public health, where you can have a golf lesson but you can't get special education therapy. That is absolutely wrong. And so we're going to continue to push on it. You think I'm a little bit, am I a little ornery today? Cindy, we have postponed our wedding 3 times. Do you think we could have a wedding in August? I mean, the short answer is I think you can. We believe that based on these guidances that the state has identified, phase 4, and I know we have a slide that refers to those phases. Phase 4 includes those larger recreation and social activities. Phase 4, if we get to phase 2 on or before June 9, That would mean phase 3 is 2 weeks from then, and phase 4 is 2 weeks from then. That would mean an activity like a wedding would be permitted in August, and I certainly want you to be able to do that. And so from our perspective, it is absolutely something that, assuming we don't see any uptick and we continue on this path through these phases quickly, you should be okay for August. And congratulations, and I apologize you've had to postpone that wedding. Mandy, great question. Why can we have protests but not high school graduations? I will tell you that I understand the anger and I understand the frustration. I truly do. First of all, protests are not as certified and permitted as a graduation, meaning a school district, a school building has to ask the state of New York to function in the state of New York. And school districts work from very specific protocols. And therefore, what I will tell you is protests in many ways are like waves crashing on the beach. Anybody in law enforcement will tell you that you might be able to prepare, you might be able to assist in sort of redirecting some of the energy, but you're not going to stop it from happening. And so focusing on trying to minimize the damage, maximize the ability to peacefully exercise one's rights has been a focus that of course law enforcement and all of us have been on. As far as the lack of certainly the contradiction, you're right. There is a contradiction. There isn't any reason in my mind or anyone's mind that a small group of students, certainly you wouldn't necessarily have 1,400 lined up next to each other, but creating a safe environment for an outdoor graduation should be possible. But again, it is your right under the Constitution, and those rights are guaranteed by law. To be able to exercise civil disobedience, your right to protest, which I absolutely accept. And if you wanted to protest not having the graduation, you could do that. But the school itself is regulated by the state of New York, and the school is compelled, as I am, to tell you that the governor's orders are that. And I do want to reference this, and maybe you don't know it, but up until March of this year, just so you know, up until March of this year, the governor of the state of New York had the same authority I have under an executive order, Article 2B of New York State election law, executive law, Article 2B under New York State executive law. I can declare a state of emergency, and then I can issue orders to waive or alter local ordinances for the public safety. The state legislature, not everyone, but the state legislature gave this governor great authority to rewrite the law in a state of emergency. Now, I'm not criticizing the man, although there are reasons to be angry. But what I will tell you is that while that may have made sense during the beginning, the effort to try to manage and centralize the response to this emergency, it no longer makes any sense. And that needs to be decentralized, that we have to start to take back that kind of decision-making, not to dismiss the governor's authority, but because at this point, the state of New York and Albany is making so many very detailed, almost micromanaged decisions that it's not practical. It's clumsy and in some ways outright offensive. So to the point of why can we do this but not that? Because the governor's order says so and the state legislature gave him the order, the ability to do that. I am of the opinion that what we should be doing is having the state do as it always has. Set broad public health expectations and then allow counties, even if those counties function as a region, to make decisions together, because the 7 counties locally here would make decisions based on the data review that comes through Albany, right? Tell us what the public health risks are. Our professionals will review those with you and move forward to make decisions. Instead, the state of New York every day is making a decision that you can play tennis but not pickleball, that you can go for a golf lesson but not a horseback riding lesson, that you can go to the beach but not have a graduation. These are not the kinds of decisions that should be relegated or centralized around one level of government or one person. So that is what I believe, and I believe that as a government and as a people and as a community, that authority needs to be decentralized again, and we ought to be making decisions collectively. So why is the state allowing giant protests? I kind of, I understand it. Believe me, I do. I get it. What I will tell you is that a man was murdered, and there is a lot of anxiety, and there is a lot of anger, and there is a lot of frustration, and there's a lot of hurt and a lot of pain. And what we are seeing is the heart of America ripped open. And no matter what you believe or what you saw, how that affects you, it affects a lot of people. and affects a lot of people poorly. What occurred in Minneapolis undermines the work of really good and decent people in law enforcement who strive every day to do their job. It also reminds people that being a person of color in this country still comes with racism. It still comes with dismissiveness, and it still comes with the glances and the glares. So I will never know what it's like to be a person of color in America, and I am not a police officer. But what I can tell you is in both cases, men and women in law enforcement who want to do their job and are doing their jobs well are undermined by what those officers did in Minneapolis. And at the same time, those Americans who in this country are people of color are reminded that we continue to confront, whether you believe that was racist or not, or based on racism or not, are still confronted with injustices, and that because I believe of that and the anxiety and the anger and the frustration that we all have living in this sort of state of freeze has erupted. And leaders are supposed to try to tamp it down, not to dismiss it, but to listen. And what I would tell you is that protests happen. They happened in East Fishkill and Hopewell, and if you're there and you want to protest the state governor not giving you permission to open your business, you get to do that, and I support your right to do that. And believe me, if it's something that I can attend, I'll be there with you. But what I will tell you is that law enforcement in this county did an exceptional job working with the protest organizers, who did an exceptional job. I saw them firsthand saying to people, "We will not allow this to turn violent." And they were confronting their own participants in a way that, quite frankly, was very, very helpful. At the same time, law enforcement was doing its job, and in planning, I recognize that you can't stop a movement. You can't. You can attempt to guide it in a way that is productive. And what I said yesterday, and would say to you, to anybody, if you've got a passion about this, turn it into some practice, into progress, into some policy or movement. And I get that and I understand it. I will also tell you that because I get it regarding, so many people were gathered together. I guess we don't have to social distance any longer. Well, the truth of the matter is we want people to engage in the steps that are necessary to stay healthy and safe. I understand that. But in the case of an outcry, all I can tell you is, again, a protest is like waves crashing on a beach. We can manage it, we can respond to it, we can try to ask people to engage in what makes sense, but sometimes we also just have to enable it to occur in a safe fashion, and that's what law enforcement did yesterday with those organizers. So I offer to you that I'm hopeful that we as a country will confront what continues to be this divide. I read what's said on Facebook, and I read what's there. I think you see that I try to respond. Some of you don't like my answers, but I'm going to continue to answer. I don't believe that this is a matter of picking sides. Some people do. Some people think you're either with them or you're against them. I think, first of all, my job is to show up and to listen, and that means if you are angry about the state of New York and you're angry about the governor and you want me to do something, it's my job to listen to you. I absolutely believe it. I absolutely believe it. I will absolutely listen to you. At the same time, I offer to you that being a leader requires to try to get people to understand that this isn't a zero-sum game. This isn't us versus them. Everybody in that community yesterday, whether they wore a uniform or not, whether they had a sign or not, were part of this American family here in this community. Maybe some from beyond, and all of their views, all of their opinions have validity to them, and therefore we have to try our best to listen to one another, learn from one another, and try to focus that energy in a way that produces positive outcomes. That is what I have always done. That is what I will continue to do, and I understand that there's some of you who don't like it, but that is exactly what I believe is my job and responsibility, and that's what we're going to continue to do in this county for the 3 years that I remain county executive. KT, is it safe to go to the dentist? Yes. Listen, you should have to. You're going to have to get to the dentist anyway. Here's the thing. I know that there are a lot of people sitting back that are on both sort of sides of this particular concern. I believe that your dentist will take the appropriate precautions to make sure that you're kept safe. However, this is a disease that can be transmitted. It is real. Believe me, I know personally it is real. And so take those steps. You might call ahead, ask your dentist what precautions they've taken, and then make that decision for yourself. But I bet you more than anything that anyone in the healthcare world is trying their best to provide you that service. Molly, how am I supposed to get PPE to all my employees? I have received no unemployment insurance in 11 weeks. Well, if you were due unemployment insurance and New York State didn't find a way for you to get it, that's a failure, and we have to figure out a way to get that to you. So continue to reach out if it's due you. I mean, if you're owed it, continue to reach out. Reach out to your state legislator. They're taking calls all the time. I can tell you that whether it's Jonathan Jacobson, Dee Dee Barrett, Sue Serino, Kieran Lawler, Pete Harcum, or Kevin Cahill, your state legislators are taking calls and they're advocating for you. Please reach out to them if you're having a problem accessing unemployment insurance. If you are looking to purchase PPE, I understand you might not have the resources to do it, but please reach out to DuchessBusinessNotificationNetwork.com, DuchessBNN.com. Got it? Good. DuchessBNN.com. The Chamber of Commerce and this network that we've created together could be helpful to you. We're going to try our best to be as supportive as we can. So that is how you access, or hopefully you'll be able to access some PPE. We've gone through the phases, talked a little bit about where we are with all of that. We're going to continue to get through questions. When do you think the governor's power will be taken back? Diane, it needs to be. It needs to be. And it's not. This isn't a criticism at all. This is the reality. The decision-making being centralized around a single layer of government may make sense under certain extreme circumstances, but now is the time to start to restore that balance. And for those of you who are thinking or might say, and I'll read those comments too, well, who do you think you are trying to make that kind of argument? The state is better equipped to understand what's going on with public health. In New York State, public health and the public health policy, both development and implementation, is mandated a responsibility of county governments. It is our job to respond to public health concerns, and with state guidance, we effectively do that. We are now clawing our way out of this pandemic, and we are restarting the economy, and now is the time for that to be relieved. So I encourage you to call your state legislator, and that means those in the majority. And I offer to you, there are two houses of the state legislature. They have majority and minority members. You should be reaching out to all of them. But now is the time to begin to claw that back. It's only responsible. Otherwise, you create a scenario where out of many is one person making decisions, and it's not healthy, and it's not right as we move forward. Nicholas, why just defy the governor's orders? I can't tell you to defy a governor's order. It is the rule. It has the force of law. So what I'm telling you is that these are the guidances, these are the rules, and the state of New York can enforce them, and that will happen. And we saw it happen across the river with a tattoo parlor. There's a gym in upstate, and an auction house, and even a barber in Ulster County, because the governor's order is yours. It's on you. The county of Dutchess doesn't have any jurisdiction over you in this setting. We don't have a permit for businesses. We don't even do zoning approval. So from our perspective, telling you could just go out and do whatever you want just isn't responsible. And at the end of the day, the state can take action. And that's why, by the way, I say respectfully, all but one county in the state of New York is making that case, even though we don't like it. We are mad, we are frustrated, and we are angry, but we are advocating for you every day. I think that's why we saw the summer camp changes. That's why outdoor dining is now in phase 2. I think that you're going to continue to hear us shout, and we did it again today. I made perfectly clear that today, more than ever, we ought to be reestablishing that balance in power, and we absolutely are in a position as a region to begin phase 2. We believe that. Arlene, what's phase 5? No phase 5. There is no phase. Gosh, I hope there is no phase 5. It's 4 phases. It occurs, as has been described to us, every 2 weeks. Donna, tent camping, camp away. Tent camping in the Mid-Hudson region is permitted. Dutchess County is permitting RV and tent campsites. We've been doing this for a number of number of weeks. It is absolutely permissible. Kevin, travel baseball still has to be thank you. That's the question. Kevin, travel baseball currently state hasn't permitted. Governor hasn't permitted travel baseball. But think about it for a second. This is what we're dealing with. Why can you play tennis and golf? Why can you go to the beach, but you can't have soccer practice? I coach my son's team. We believe from a public health perspective, it is safe to have small groups of young people practicing certain athletics. We believe it's safe so long as you exercise certain precautions and don't engage in certain activities that will have kids all over each other. That said, again, if summer camps can open, we believe that we should be able to start the process of getting baseball and soccer and youth athletics up and running again in a safe manner, and there's a way to do that. Todd asked about water parks. I have absolutely, I can tell you that the county executives have made this a case. We are running the risk of really threatening here in Dutchess County the success and viability of Splashdown Beach. In Ulster County, there's concern regarding Rocking Horse Ranch. And again, we understand the safety issues, but as we all confront them, amusement parks like Splashdown and others have created protocols to keep people safe. And then you choose. Within those guidances if you feel like participating. Connecticut on June the 1st, I believe, is going to move forward with water parks. If Connecticut is 2, 3, 4 weeks ahead, how do we expect the Turk family and Splashdown to spend $500,000 to open up a month from now? And what is the logic when the governor says that New York, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, New Jersey are all functioning as a region if they're not? And our concern is that we need to be safe and we need to use the data logically. Liz, haven't gotten a ballot yet. I assume this is your school district ballot. You should all, as a reminder, Liz, as a reminder, every registered voter in a school district should have received a paper ballot for your school district vote. If you have not, you should contact your school district administration, not the Board of Elections. They don't administer those particular elections. Contact the school district administration, let them know you haven't received a ballot, and hopefully they'll be able to accommodate. I don't know yet if I don't know offhand the date that you must have those ballots in. I feel like it's June the 9th, but I don't want to say that. We'll get you an answer so that you know what that deadline is. But please reach out to your school district administration. Amanda, will schools open in September? I certainly hope so. Excuse me. The state is working toward protocols with school districts. We are working with our school districts. We believe, obviously, that assuming we don't see a major upturn and a spike in the disease, that schools should open in September. Obviously, they will be with certain precautions, but we think that is attainable, assuming we don't have any major uptick in those numbers. Kelly asked about town playgrounds. Kelly, I will tell you, most parks are open. Dutchess County's playgrounds are accessible. We're asking people to minimize some of that activity. But I have 4 kids. Taking them to a park and having them stare at a playground that isn't accessible and trying to keep them away from that is a bit complicated at best. So I will tell you again, if summer camps are allowed to be open the end of June, we're hoping the state makes clear direction that all playgrounds and sort of those sort of recreation activities. But again, that currently would be, as far as we can tell, phase 4. But town parks, most municipal parks are open. Dutchess County parks are open. Please take advantage of them. We'd welcome you to that. Melissa's asking about when will masks go away. I don't know that they go away entirely. I think that you make that decision as you see fit. And as right now, the guidance is to continue to wear face covering. I know, and I will tell you that yesterday, as I participated in speaking to leaders at that protest, I did remove my face covering to speak. I know that isn't the greatest example, but it is also a lesson that we remind everybody, which is we expect that you try to engage in social distancing and wear a face covering when you can. And if you can't, you should be certain that if you are within distance, as I was, that you're tested. So in fact, on Friday, I'll be tested just as a way to be sure that I haven't contracted COVID-19. And I'm sure someone will tell you what my results are. But my goal will be, and I encourage anyone who can't engage in that social distancing, if you're in a climate where you think you may have come into contact with somebody who has contracted the disease, you should go get tested. That is appropriate. And again, we want people to do these things. Yes, we can't do it perfectly. I apologize if you felt that was a bad example. I understand that. But at the same time, what we say to everyone is the same thing. These are guidances that we encourage you to use. I'm not we're not using law enforcement to tell people to put a mask on or not go into a location. We're saying use it as a means of protecting yourself from the transmission of the disease, especially when social distancing is not permitted. And in this case, I will tell you, I think that you're going to see people continue to wear face coverings for a while, and there certainly is every reason to do that if you think that's best. As we've said, for the time being, continue to use a face covering. We think it's appropriate, and we'll continue to exercise that with consideration. Denise, do I have to wear a mask on the rail trail? No, you should have one with you. You should have a face covering with you. If you're going out with your family, no, you should enjoy that time with one another. If you come across someone else who is not from your family or immediate sort of household, or it's someone, stranger to you, and you're going to be coming in close proximity, put your face covering on until they pass by, and then take it off. But no, when you're out in public, take advantage of that sort of if you are independent of others, please. You don't have to wear it for that purpose, but if you come into contact or close proximity to somebody, you want it, and you'll want to be able to cover your face, and keep in mind that is considerate to yourself and others. Denise asked that. Mackenzie and others are asking about gyms. We think currently gyms fall within the phase 4 category. We are asking for consideration on that. We think that gyms, and believe me, I'd like to get to mine. Gyms are certainly something that can be managed safely with capacity, perhaps shielding between pieces of equipment, and again, engaging in that cleanliness, perhaps more aggressively than you would have seen before. So we're hopeful that the state considers moving those up a bit. I can tell you that public pools are permitted now. We are permitting public pools. The state has a limitation. The governor's office has said not more than 10 people. Again, I don't know where that logic is. I think it should be a percentage of capacity. If you have a pool that can have 500 people in it, 10 seems like a small number. But our county health department is permitting those public pools, and we're going to move forward with those. But as far as gyms are concerned, we'd like to get them open. As I think I've said, Mike Ortega likes when I mention that I go to Mike Ortega's. But Gold's, Planet Fitness, Crunch, Fit Social, and All Sport, and so many others, we'd like to get you open, and we're trying to push for that to be done responsibly. I'm hopeful phase 3. How will we be notified of phase 2? Peggy, here's the thing. The state, we're on these daily phone calls. I'll be candid, they're not the most productive use of our time, but we're on these daily phone calls with staff at the governor's office. And we're trying every day. We get updates, and so our assumption is that we will learn that we're moving to phase. We will learn that we're moving to phase 2 on June 9th until we're not. And what I mean by that is we're going to move to phase 2 on June 9th. We'll probably be advised if there's some reason why that becomes problematic, but I don't believe that from a science or medical or public health perspective, there is a reason why we would not move to phase 2. So we'll know that early into next week. But if you're a business owner, I'd be cognizant that obviously you don't have a lot of resources to waste. I think that you should take what is the minimum expectation for the opening, meaning I know that you want to be ready to go. You don't likely have a lot of resources to spend. I'd spend as little as possible preparing to reopen, and then as you reopen and customers and clients and others start to come into that business, then I would start to expand your commitment to some of those services. So instead of buying a lifetime supply of PPE, maybe you buy a week of PPE. And then over the course of time, you buy a little bit more. And I understand that, but as we've done as well, we've had to make some big purchases, and then we've made some incremental purchases. And I just would say, from a business perspective, I don't want to encourage you to spend a huge amount of money up front. You don't have it. It's not easily accessible, and I know the challenge you've had so far, obviously keeping afloat. So I would take what's minimally expected, get that started, and as customers hopefully start to come back and your business starts to take hold again, start to make that incremental expansion in providing those services. School district elections are June 9th. Where's my ballot? Jill, I kind of answered that already, but I'll offer to you that you should have gotten one in the mail. If you did not, Jill, call your school district administration for that ballot. Judy, DMVs. New York State has determined that DMV offices remain closed currently until June 6th. The state did announce that state-run DMVs, there are some counties where the state runs those DMVs. They're starting to do what Dutchess County's DMV has been doing for the last several weeks, which is some online and mail-in services. Our DMV, administered by the county clerk, Brad Kendall, here in Dutchess. Again, the state has ordered remains closed till June the 6th, but we are working on plans, and the county clerk will be communicating with us and you as to when those when DMVs will reopen. Do we think there will be a spike in cases because of protesting? Well, I mean, in one sense, it is going to be a real test of what we know about the disease, right? The hope is nobody who participated had already contracted COVID, and that individuals who were sort of gathered together will not have transmitted the disease. But again, if somebody did, it is likely that the disease is transferred. And if it is, we will see new cases. Now, that said, we're obviously encouraging people who participate in activities where you can't engage in social distancing, or you may come into contact with somebody who may have contracted the disease. Give you an example, right? People get on a plane. The airline tells you that there's distance between seating, and then you get on the plane. You're sitting next to somebody that you didn't expect. You didn't expect anyone next to you. And we've seen this, by the way, all across the country, right? They say every other seat unless we can't. You might be in an environment where that happens. You may have to take the train into New York City for work. You may be in an environment where that happens. You may be a police officer and you're in a setting where you can't keep that distance, or a paramedic. These kinds of things, if you can't maintain that social distancing and you feel like you've come into contact with somebody who may have contracted or at least was exposed to the disease, you should be tested, and you should take advantage of those public testing opportunities. Linda, who checks our numbers as we open up. Who would make the decision to shut down again? Well, the second part of the question is, if nothing changes, it will be and remain the decision of the governor of the state of New York. And I'd argue with you again that we do think that those decisions ought to be made in consultation with local leaders. We do it every day with our municipal leaders. And again, our public health department is more than capable of professionally responding to what we know as the data points. That said, who checks the numbers? These numbers are compiled from different locations. So the test numbers come in from test sites. Hospitalizations come in from the hospitals. We are monitoring those all the time. And so your local government officials will see that. That gets shared, obviously, in the state, which then creates the state's dashboard, and you can see the new metrics that they're using. So that'll be there. And in fact, you'll be able to see it too. You'll see it live on both our website and the New York Forward website. You can take a look at it. And so those numbers will be relatively available to us. And as we see any particular trends, we'll be communicating with each other. And again, in theory, the way this should work is that together we come to the decision of what is needed in response to that. Karen is testing free. Some locations do charge, but most are free. You should go to the Dutchess County website, dutchessny.gov. dutchessny.gov, go to COVID-19 resources, and then testing and screening. You'll see the testing protocols. There are locations that we administer with Nuvance at the Dutchess Stadium, Mid-Hudson Regional Hospital, and then there are pharmacies across, and Pulse MD, and then there are pharmacies across the county that provide testing. Again, some are free, some require a payment. And you may also contact, if you have a physician, contact your physician, because some of the larger physician groups certainly are able to access the specimen collection, which is that thing that goes into your nose for that swab that goes into your nose for that testing. So that is, again, something that you want to check with your physician if you have one. If not, visit dutchessny.gov. We'll provide you some links and information for that. Debbie asked, when can I visit someone at the hospital? That is still an unanswered question. Obviously, hospitals in particular, they want to keep as clean and safe as possible. My heart breaks for those who have friends or family in hospitals and in nursing homes where you can't visit or speak to them. Those who may have family members in independent living facilities or group homes, as they're referred to, or institutions. We think that there are safe ways to do it. I will tell you, those hospitals will be making the decisions with the state and local health departments. That has not yet been something they're willing to open up. Nursing homes, the same, much higher risk. In fact, a good number of our cases do come from nursing home are from nursing home facilities, but I am thrilled. I frankly am. I shouldn't say thrilled. I'm very, very happy and confident that what we've seen in nursing homes in Dutchess County has been relatively promising news. Not widespread transmission, only in a small number of asymptomatic positive patients that we were able to identify with nursing homes. They do a wonderful job. I'm very grateful to all, I think 13 that we have in Dutchess County. Very, very grateful to them. But until the hospitals make those decisions with public health at the state and local level, right now you can't do that. And of course, believe me, I know what that feels like. I certainly do. Todd, I'm going to give you bad news. Will we still have the Special Olympics? The Special Olympics are postponed for 2020. They're not going to occur this year. The ability to organize, and by the way, the need to secure sponsors for the Special Olympics was just overwhelming, and they're not going to occur this year. So we're hopeful that we get them back. I know that they would like to come home to Dutchess. And I can't tell you how disappointed and saddened I am that we're not able to host them this year. But they're not occurring. They're not going to happen this year, and we'll, obviously continue to work to bring them back here to Dutchess. Mike and many others. When can churches have in-person services? Well, you may know that the county leaders in this region, along with a half a dozen city leaders, made a request on Saturday or Sunday that in-person services begin at houses of worship. We think that, in fact, we ran this by our public health department. We think limited capacity, of course, but our houses of worship provide an important, critical connection that a lot of people need. And after these several months, and certainly after these last few days, there are people whose souls are exposed, and we need our faith leaders to be able to get to practice with congregants, with their congregations, if you will. And so we've asked that currently only not more than 10 people can participate in a church service. That's the governor's order. Along with vehicle-based services can occur, but currently no in person. We think it's more than enough time now to have the protocols in place to get houses of worship open with limited capacity. And again, you can choose as a house of worship, in my opinion. If we say you can open at 25 or 30% capacity, which we've asked the state to allow, you can choose not to. But those who want to, we believe, should. And I'd offer to you that there's an understandable concern early on about restricting congregations so that we knew more about how the transmission of the disease occurs. We know who's vulnerable, and we know how to limit that transmission. You also know, as a resident, what certain risks are in making the decisions for yourselves. So we're comfortable with houses of worship opening with limited capacity, but the state and the governor have not approved that as of yet. So if you have other questions, just write them in that comment section. We'll do that in a minute or two. We've got a couple more things we want to cover. Mary, any update on the Dutchess County Fair? I don't. Let me first tell you that the Dutchess County Fair is administered by the Agricultural Society of Dutchess County. It is a tax-exempt not-for-profit. It is not county government. We've advised that we think some sort of modified approach to the county fair could work this August. I'm certainly hopeful that they're not forced to make the decision not to have the fair, but they also have to make an economic decision, which is many of their vendors may not want to travel into New York, some because other fairs will have been canceled already. Some may not have the funds to be able to do it, and then at some point operating a massive event like the fair, which has costs, if you're not bringing the revenue to offset it, there might just be more than they can handle. So I'm certainly encouraging the Agricultural Society Board of Directors to pay real good attention to the possibility of a modified approach to the county fair. I'd ask you not to pull the plug on the fair until we know what the protocols will be. I think it's very, very important that we give people that opportunity if it's logistically and financially possible for you. But that is administered by the Agricultural Society of Dutchess County, and we're here to support them. We've advised them that a modified approach is something we could help with. The county is not going to tell them they cannot have the county fair, but we acknowledge that it would have to be in a modified way, and we're hopeful that they consider that. Mary also asked about the Renegades. And I've said many times there isn't anyone in Dutchess County who, more than me, wants the fair happening. and the Renegades starting their season. There is the possibility of some sort of modified baseball activity this spring. Truly, minor league baseball is really dependent on what happens in Major League Baseball, and there has yet to be a final agreement between ownership of baseball teams and the players. And until there is, it's unlikely that minor league has any expectation for playing. So we're hopeful that happens, but that really is a decision that still has to be made between Major League and Major League Baseball ownership and its players. So if you have a question before we wrap up this afternoon, simply write it in that comment space, and I'll be happy to try to get to it. I think we have gotten to probably more today than many other days, but I understand, believe me, I do, the anxiety and the angst that many have. Emma is asking, if Phase 2 hasn't been officially declared, why have administrative staff at DCC been asked to prepare for work on Monday? Because they're preparing for Phase 2. And what I would offer to you is, first, just so you know, education institutions are still deemed essential. So what I'd offer to you, and that is correct, education and government are deemed essential. And so I don't like that term. I will say up front, you might not think I believe it, but I do. I think every job and every business and every opportunity is essential. I think that we should be saying what's open and what's not. Colleges, education, community, government are able to operate. Administrative staff can function, and I can't tell you what specifically Dutchess Community College is seeking, but I will tell you that they do have the right to have administrative staff working either from their offices or at home. How they limit that is governed by the state expectation currently. But if we get to Phase 2, which would be Tuesday, then being prepared to come to work Monday into Tuesday is appropriate. And I'm guessing that that's what they're preparing for, the concept that by Tuesday you'll be opening into this next phase. So that is something that that can happen. Megan, are there guidelines for outdoor dining? There are, and the state has just issued them today. So you'll be able to find them by going to duchessny.gov, and then there's a link to business resources that you can get to. The state has those online at the New York Forward website. It is currently, based on what I read quickly, so without trying to get into too much detail, which will get me in trouble, outdoor dining being permitted in Phase 2 is just that, outdoor dining. Still curbside pickup, delivery, and even in-store pickup. But this would be outdoor dining only, and that based on what I could tell, it wasn't necessarily a capacity limitation in outdoor dining, but it was that seating needs to be at least 6 feet apart. So if you're at a patio, you can't have tables on top of each other. They need to be spaced out. And as I said, we're going to launch an Opening Main Street effort that allows for businesses with your municipality, town, village, or city to expand the outdoor capacity. So it may be that a street's closed for a period of time. I was talking to the mayor of Tivoli, and they're going to try to create sort of a boulevard effect on Broadway, for instance, where restaurants can seat outdoors. We're going to give them the permission, the right to do that. I'm going to sign an executive order that waives those local protocols to allow that to happen. Communities, like Wappinger have asked, town of Wappinger have asked, well, could we convert a parking lot into outdoor seating? And if so, they'd have to waive certain local parking requirements. Yep, we're going to do that as well. So as the municipalities give us those specific codes, we'll include them in an emergency order, and I will seek to waive those restrictions so that municipalities can allow that to proceed. We're asking the State Liquor Authority to give credence to those orders, and I'm going to ask for a freeze of enforcement by the State Liquor Authority in those scenarios. John, Phase 3, bars, restaurants, will they be 100% up front? John, I believe bars and restaurants interior will be Phase 3. I do not know yet, because the state has not said, I believe, what interior capacity will be, but it would likely be restricted, not 100% capacity in the first days of reopening. So again, we are asking that Phase 2 begin ahead of June 9th. We believe as a region that is safe. As I've mentioned, with Phase 2 comes outdoor dining. We're taking some steps locally to create opportunities by waiving local ordinances, and we're doing that in collaboration with our towns, villages, and cities. We'll keep you posted on the next phases, and we'll go from there. So we're going to close today. Before you leave us, we're going to close today. I yesterday received an email letter from a young girl, Lyra, who you're going to meet in a moment. And I wanted to share this with you. She and her mother, and I will tell you, her mother, Kimberly, like so many moms and dads across the country, but certainly in New York State, have been, become more than obviously parents and referees. They've become teachers in many ways, relying not only on school teachers, but their own resources to educate their kids. I know that my wife, I can tell you, Corinne, honestly, she has skills that I'll never have. She has created this military outfit for four kids to get through our education. But Kimberly, Lyra's mother, shared with us that they talk about current events, and I understand why. You can't help but turn on the TV or your news feed on any one of social media platforms and see what's going on in the world. I'd offer to you that I think I will say this ahead of the video. I'm guessing some of you have been kind in writing comments in the Facebook feed, and I'm guessing some have been less than kind in writing comments on the social media feed. And it's not a reflection. I'm not judging you. I'm just saying that everything we do now, we have to be, I think, even more increasingly aware, is an example to our kids. They're home with us. They hear us. They see us. Maybe they're looking over our shoulders while we're typing. Maybe we're typing with them. They turn on the TV and they see burning. They see a man with a police officer's knee around his neck. They see businesses shuttered. They see moms and dads crying because they can't provide service. All of this is bombarding our kids. And I can tell you that I don't have all of the answers. In fact, as a parent, I probably fail more than I succeed. But we have to be better examples to them. And I agree right now, somebody may be saying, yeah, that's right. And some of you may be saying, shut up. But I won't. We have to be best examples to our kids. And what Kimberly expressed to us for Lyra was they want Lyra and her brother, whose name may be Troy, I think it was. They talk about current events. They talk about what's on in the news, and they talk through things. And Lyra, this very young girl, was distressed by what she saw on TV, and she was heartbroken and wondered what it would feel like if one of her friends in her school in Dover if one of her classmates was treated poorly, was judged not by the capacity or the character of he or she, but by the color of his or her skin. And if you think that isn't how some people are judged or some people judge others, you're wrong. It happens all the time. And she, in her own way, was heartbroken by that and wondered what could be done. So she wrote me a letter, and you're going to see that in just a moment. And as she concluded our conversation today, we spoke over video. She also listed for me a few things that people can do, and I want to leave you with the two things that we can do. Lyra said that if we all just smiled a little more and asked, "How are you?" maybe things would get a little bit better. I don't have the answers for you. I really don't. I don't have all of them. I'll try to respond to you. I'll accept the beatings and the anger, and I understand that if you think I or Dutchess County or anyone in this community has done something you agree with or disagree with, we accept that. But I think Lyra is absolutely spot on. Even with all the trouble we have, if we could smile a little bit more and ask people, how are you? Maybe, just maybe, it would get a little bit better. And as she reminded us, you just have to take the first step. So I'm grateful to Lyra, and I hope you enjoy seeing her. She's a precious young lady who has something to say. Lyra, I was so impressed with your letter. I didn't want to just read it on the television. I wanted you to read it to me, and I want people to hear it from your voice. I thought that was a really important message that people need to hear right now.
Dear Mr. Molinaro, I am Lyra. I am 7 years old, almost 8, and I am in 2nd grade. I remember that you came to my school, Wingdale Elementary School, and you read all the places you'll go. I have that book, and I love to read it. It was fun seeing you there. I love to dance, sing, and perform on stage. I also have a little brother, His name is Troy, and he is 4 years old. My favorite animals are red pandas, seahorses, pandas in general, otters, seals, and dolphins. I want you to know that our family has been talking about current events around the country in regard to racial injustice. Please know that we believe all people should be treated equally no matter what color their skin is. We thank you for supporting all people in our county and ask that you continue to go one step more because we have a lot of work to do. I think that a great idea would be to write a letter to everyone in our county to remind them to be kind to one another and listen to ideas that would create a positive change. Thank you for taking the time to read my letter. Sincerely, Lyra.
Thank you, Lyra. That was beautiful. And I want you to know that there are going to be a lot of people who are going to see this and they're going to be very touched. And hopefully they're going to take that first step too.